Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Devotee. Which time is most suitable for meditation? Maharshi. What is time? Devotee. Tell me what it is. Maharshi replied, Time is only an idea. There is only the reality. Whatever you think it is, it looks like that. If you call it time, it is time. If you call it existence, it is existence, and so on. After calling it time, you divide it into days and nights, months, years, hours, minutes, etc. Time is immaterial for the path of knowledge, but some of these rules and discipline are good for beginners. Devotee. What is Jnana Marga? Maharshi. Concentration of the mind is in a way common to both knowledge and yoga. Yoga aims at union of the individual with the universal, the reality. This reality cannot be new. It must exist even now, and it does exist. Therefore, the path of knowledge tries to find out how viyoga or separation came about. The separation is from the reality only. Devotee. What is illusion? Maharshi. To whom is the illusion? Find it out. Then illusion will vanish. Generally, people want to know about illusion and do not examine to whom it is. It is foolish. Illusion is outside and unknown. But the seeker is considered to be known and is inside. Find out what is immediate, intimate, instead of trying to find out what is distant and unknown. Devotee. Does Maharshi advise any physical posture for the Europeans? Maharshi. It may be advisable. However, it must be clearly understood that meditation is not prohibited in the absence of asanas or prescribed times or any accessories of the kind. Devotee. Does Maharshi have any particular method to impart to the Europeans in particular? Maharshi. It is according to the mental equipment of the individual. There is indeed no hard and fast rule. Mr. Evans Wentz began to ask questions, mostly relating to yoga preliminaries, for all of which Maharshi replied that they are aids to yoga, which is itself an aid to self-realization, the goal of all. Devotee. Is work an obstruction to self-realization? Maharshi replied, No. For a realized being, the self alone is the reality, and the actions are only phenomenal, not affecting the self. Even when he acts, he has no sense of being an agent. His actions are only involuntary, and he remains a witness to them without any attachment. There is no aim for this action. Even one who is still practicing the wisdom or Jnana Marga can practice while engaged in work. It may be difficult in the earlier stages for a beginner, but after some practice, it will soon be effective, and work will not be found a hindrance to meditation. Devotee. What is the practice? Maharshi replied, Constant search for I, the source of the ego. Find out, who am I? The pure I is the reality, the absolute existence, consciousness, bliss. When that is forgotten, all miseries crop up. When that is held fast, the miseries do not affect the person. Is not brahmacharya or celibacy necessary for realization of the self? Asked the devotee. Maharshi replied, Brahmacharya is living in Brahman. It has no connection with celibacy as commonly understood. A real brahmachari, that is, one who lives in Brahman, finds bliss in the Brahman, which is the same as the self. Why then should you look for other sources of happiness? In fact, the emergence from the self has been the cause of all the misery. Devotee. Celibacy is a sine qua non for yoga, which means, is celibacy required for yoga? Maharshi. So it is. Celibacy is certainly an aid to realization among so many other aids. Devotee. Is it then not indispensable? Can a married man realize the self? Maharshi. Certainly. It is a matter of fitness of mind, married or unmarried. A man can realize the self because that is here and now. If it were not so, but attainable by some efforts at some other time, and if it were new and something to be acquired, it would not be worthy of pursuit. But what is not natural cannot be permanent either. But what I say is that the self is here and now and alone. Devotee. God being immanent in all, one should not take life of any kind. Is society right in taking the life of a murderer? Can the state do so either? The Christian countries began to think that it is wrong to do so. Maharshi. What is it that prompted the murderer to commit the crime? The same power awards him the punishment. Society or the state is only a tool in the hands of the power. You speak of one life taken away, but what about the innumerable lives lost in wars? Devotee. Quite so. Loss of lives is wrong anyway. Are wars justified? Maharshi replied, for a realized man, the one who remains ever in the self, the loss of one or several or all lives, either in this world or in all the three worlds, make no difference. Even if he happens to destroy them all, no sin can touch such a pure soul. Maharshi quoted the Gita, chapter 18, verse 17, he who is free from the notion of the ego, whose intellect is unattached, though he annihilates all the worlds, he slayeth not, nor is he bound by the results of his actions. Devotee. Do not one's action affect a person in afterbirths? Maharshi replied, are you born now? Why do you think of other births? The fact is that there is neither birth nor death. Let him who is born think of death and palliatives therefore. Devotee. How long did it take Maharshi to realize the self? Maharshi replied, the question is asked because the name and form are perceived. There are the perceptions consequent on the identification of the ego with the gross body. If the ego identifies with the subtle mind as in dream, the perceptions are subtle also. But in sleep there are no perceptions. Was there not the ego still? Unless it was, there cannot be the memory of having slept. Who was it that slept? You did not say in your sleep that you slept. You say it now in your wakeful state. The ego, therefore, is the same in wakefulness, dream, and sleep. Find out the underlying reality behind these three states. That is the reality underlying these. In that state, there is being alone. There is no you, nor I, nor he, no present, no past, no future. It is beyond time and space, beyond expression. It is ever there. Just as a plantain tree produces shoots at its roots before yielding fruits and perishing, and these shoots being transplanted do the same again, so also the original primeval master of antiquity, that is Dakshinamurti, who cleared the doubts of his rishi disciples in silence, has left shoots which are ever multiplying. The Guru is a shoot of that Dakshinamurti. The question does not arise when the self is realized. Devotee: does Maharshi enter the Nirvikalpa Samadhi? Maharshi replied, if the eyes are closed, it is Nirvikalpa. If not, if open, it is Savikalpa. The ever-present state is the natural state of Sahaja. 26th January 1935. Talk number 18. Mr. Evans Wentz asked, there are yogis with occult powers. What does Maharshi think of them? Maharshi replied, the powers are known by hearsay or by exhibition. Thus they are in the realm of the mind only. Devotee: Mr. Brunton mentions a yogi in Madras who is said to hold communion with his master in the Himalayas. Maharshi: it is not more marvelous than telepathy, so commonly known. Telepathy cannot exist without the hearer and the television without the seer. What is the difference between hearing from far and from near? It is only the hearer who matters. Without the hearer, there cannot be hearing. Without the seer, there cannot be vision. Devotee: so, you want me to consider the subject and not the object? Maharshi replied, the subject and the object appear only after the mind has arisen. The mind comprises them and also the occult powers. Devotee: can the manifestations of light, that is Jyotis, be seen on Arunachala hill? Maharshi: yes. Devotee: is there any psychic effect in visiting sacred places like Mount Kailash, Benares, etc.? Maharshi replied, yes. Devotee: is there any benefit accruing by dying in Benares? Maharshi replied, yes. The meaning will be clear if the real Benares and the real dying be understood. Devotee: you mean they are in the self? Maharshi: yes. Devotee: there are 6 centers in the body and there are corresponding centers in the world. Maharshi replied, yes. What is in the world is in the body, and what is in the body is in the world also. Devotee: is the sacredness of Benares a matter of faith, or is it externally also real? Maharshi replied, both. Devotee: some people are attracted to one place of pilgrimage and others to another. Is it according to their temperaments? Maharshi: yes. Just consider how all of you, born in different places and living in other lands, are gathered here today. What is the force which has attracted you here? If this is understood, the other force is also understood. 29th January 1935. Talk number 19. Mr. Grant Duff asked, what are memory and forgetfulness? Where are memory and forgetfulness located? Maharshi replied, in the mind, that is Chitta. End of talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi.